So, Uber just dropped its latest quarterly earnings, and wow, the numbers are something else. The company isn't just growing, it's absolutely firing on all cylinders. But that huge headline profit number, is it maybe a little too good to be true? We're about to break down what's really driving this insane momentum and what it all means for Uber's future.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. Let's just start with a quote from the top. The CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, said growth kicked into high gear, calling it one of the largest increases in trip volume in the company's entire history. That's a pretty bold statement, so let's see if the numbers actually back it up.
All right, let's dig right into that headline growth. This isn't just about one part of the business doing well. We're talking about a serious lift across all of Uber's most important metrics.
Just look at this momentum. The total number of trips taken is up a massive 22% compared to last year. And gross bookings, that's all the money spent on their platform, is right there with it, up 21%. These aren't just good numbers. They're a huge sign that people are using Uber's services more than ever. You know, a 22% increase sounds big, but that number becomes absolutely mind-blowing when you really get a sense of the scale Uber is working with. So let's just look at the raw numbers from the last 3 months alone. So, really quick, let's get on the same page about this term, gross bookings. When you hear that, just think of it as the total dollar value of everything, every single ride, every food order, all the taxes and fees included. It's the whole pie before Uber takes its cut.
So, who's actually using the app? Well, how about 189 million people every single month? To put that in perspective, that's like the entire population of a pretty big country using Uber on a monthly basis. And that user base is growing like crazy, up 17% in just 1 year.
And what did all those people do? They took, get this, 3.5 billion trips. No, that is not a typo. 3.5 billion rides and deliveries in just 3 months. That's a 22% jump from a year ago. And when you add all that up, you get this, nearly $50 billion in gross bookings. That's how much business flowed through Uber in just 90 days. I mean, the scale is just hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, so with all that cash flowing, you gotta ask, how much of that is actually profit, right? Well, this quarter's report had a number that made everyone's jaw drop. But, and this is a big but, there's a hidden story here. And this is it, the number that got all the headlines. A net income of $6.6 billion. I mean, for a company that was famous for losing money for years, this looks like the comeback of the century. But hang on a second. Where did $6.5 billion really come from? Did they just suddenly figure out the secret sauce to making their business crazy profitable? Well, the real answer is a lot more interesting. And this chart tells the whole story. That massive profit, well, a huge chunk of it, nearly $5 billion, was actually a one-time tax benefit. Then you've got another $1.5 billion from their investments going up in value. The actual profit from running the business, a little over $1 billion. Still great, for sure, but it's not $6.6 billion great. Okay, so to get a much better, a much truer picture of how the actual day-to-day business is doing, we look at something called adjusted EBITDA. Basically, it's just a way to strip out all those weird one-time things, like tax benefits and investment gains, so we can see the raw health of the core company. And this number, this is the real story. Adjusted EBITDA hit a record $2.3 billion. So let's be super clear. When you ignore all the accounting noise, the core business is healthier and more profitable than it has ever been. And it's up an incredible 33% from last year. Okay, so we know the core business is absolutely humming, but what's actually powering that engine? Let's break it down and look at its two biggest pieces, the classic rides business, mobility, versus that fast-growing delivery segment. This table lays it all out pretty clearly. Mobility, the original Uber rides, is still the king. It's the biggest and most profitable, bringing in $25 billion in bookings and $2 billion in profit. But man, look at delivery. It's right on its heels in terms of bookings. Oh, and freight? Yeah, it's still just a small piece of the puzzle and actually losing a little bit of money right now. But this is where things get really exciting. When you look at the growth in profit, delivery is the absolute superstar. I mean, its profit grew by 47% in 1 year. That's more than double the growth of the already strong mobility business. And this is a huge deal. You know why? Because it shows that delivery isn't just about growth anymore. It's turning into a serious profit machine, and that completely changes the story for Uber. All right, so after a quarter with record growth and record operational profit, where does Uber even go from here? Let's take a peek at what the company is telling investors to expect.
And yeah, they're feeling pretty confident. They're forecasting that this momentum is just going to keep rolling into the next quarter. They expect gross bookings to clear $53 billion and for that core operational profit to keep on climbing. The message here is loud and clear. They think the good times are here to stay. And all this financial success, it's what lets them place these big bets on the future. The CEOs laid out a pretty clear vision. First, build lifelong customer relationships. Second, expand beyond just rides and food. They want to be your go-to for all local commerce. And of course, the big one, harness the massive potential of AI and autonomous tech. So what's the big takeaway here? Uber's core business has turned into an absolute cash machine, and that cash is funding some really ambitious bets on the future. Which really leaves us with the billion-dollar question, right? With its main businesses firing on all cylinders and these huge bets on AI, can Uber actually keep up this record-breaking pace?